All right, guys, we're on chapter 4 of Ragged Dick, Street Life in New York. So, chapter 4. So, Dick's new suit. I remember Dick was walking by and he befriended his uncle and his nephew. And the uncle looked at him and saw how raggedy he looked and decided to help him out. So, Dick's new suit, chapter 4. Now, said Mr. Whitney to Dick, my nephew here is on his way to a boarding school. He has a suit of clothes in his trunk about half worn. He is willing to give them to you. I think they will look better than those you have on. Dick was so astonished that he already knew what to say. Presents were something that he knew very little about, never having received any to his knowledge. That so large a gift should be made to him by a stranger seemed very wonderful. The clothes were brought out and turned out to be a neat gray suit. Before you put them on, my lad, you must wash yourself. Clean clothes and a dirty skin don't go very well together. Frank, you may attend to him. I am obliged to go at once. Have you got as much money as you require? Yes, uncle. One more word, my lad, said Mr. Whitney, addressing Dick. I may be rash in trusting a boy of whom I know nothing, but I like your looks, and I think you will prove a proper guide for my nephew. Yes, I will, sir, said Dick earnestly. Honor bright. Very well, a pleasant time to you. The process of cleansing commenced. To tell the truth, Dick needed it, and the sensation of cleanliness he found both new and pleasant. Frank added to his gift a shirt, stockings, and an old pair of shoes. I'm sorry I haven't any cap, said he. I've got one, said Dick. It isn't so new as it might be, said Frank, surveying an old felt hat which had once been black but was now dingy, with a large hole in the top and a portion of the rim torn off. No, said Dick, my grandfather used to wear it when he was a boy, and I've kept it ever since, out of respect for his memory. But I'll get a new one now. I can buy one cheap on Chatham Street. Is that near here? Only 5 minutes walk. Then when we get then when then we can get one on the way. When Dick was dressed in his new attire with his face and hands clean and his hair brushed, it was difficult to imagine that he was the same boy. He now looked quite handsome and might readily have been taken for a young gentleman, except that his hands were red and grimy. Look at yourself, said Frank, leading him before the mirror. By gracious, said Dick, starting back in astonishment. That isn't me, is it? Don't you know yourself? Asked Frank, smiling. It reminds me of Cinderella, said Dick, when she was changed into a fairy princess. I see it one night at Barnum's. What'll Johnny Nolan say when he sees me? He won't dare to speak to such a young swell as I be now. Ain't it rich? And Dick burst into a loud laugh. His fancy was tickled by the anticipation of his friend's surprise. Then the thought of the valuable gifts he had received occurred to him, and he looked gratefully at Frank. You're a brick, he said. A what? A brick. You're a jolly good fellow to give me such a present. You're quite welcome, Dick, said Frank kindly. I'm better off than you are, and I can spare the clothes just as well as not. You must have a new hat, though, but that we can get when we go out. The old clothes you can make into a bundle. Wait a minute till I get my handkerchief. No, wait a minute till I get my handkercher. And Dick pulled from the pocket of the pants a dirty rag which might have been white once, though it did not look like it, and had apparently once formed a part of his sheet or shirt. You mustn't carry that, said Frank. But I've got a cold, said Dick. Oh, I don't mean you to go without a handkerchief. I'll give you one. Frank opened his trunk and pulled out two, which he gave to Dick. I wonder if I ain't dreaming, said Dick, once more surveying himself doubtfully in the glass. I'm afraid I'm dreaming and shall wake up in a barrel as I did afore last, as I did night afore last. Shall I pinch you so you can wake here? Asked Frank playfully. Yes, said Dick, seriously, I wish you would. He pulled up the sleeve of his jacket and Frank pinched him pretty hard so that Dick winced. Yes, I guess I'm awake, said Dick. You got a pair of nippers you have, but what shall I do with my brush and blacking? He asked. You can leave them here till we come back, said Frank. They will be safe. Hold on a minute, said Dick, surveying Frank's boots with a professional eye. You ain't got a good shine on them boots, so I'll make 'em shine so you can see your face in 'em. And he was as good as his word. Thank you, said Frank. Now you had better brush your own shoes. This had not occurred to Dick, for in general the professional bootblack considers his blacking too valuable to expend on his own shoes or boots, if he is fortunate enough to possess a pair. The two boys now went downstairs together. They met the same servant who had spoken to Dick a few minutes before, but there was no recognition. He don't know me, said Dick. He thinks I'm a young swell like you. What's a swell? Oh, a feller that wears knobby clothes like you. Ain't you too, Dick? And you too, Dick? Yes, said Dick. Whoever had, er, who'd ever, Who'd ever thought as I should have turned into a swell? They had now got out on Broadway and were slowly walking along the west side by the park, when who should Dick see in front of him but Johnny Nolan. Instantly Dick was seized with a fancy for witnessing Johnny's amazement at his change in appearance. He stole up behind him and struck him on the back. "Hello, Johnny, how many shines have you had?" Johnny turned around expecting to see Dick, whose voice he recognized, but as his astonished eyes rested on a nicely dressed boy, the hat alone excepted, who looked indeed like Dick, but so transformed in dress that it was difficult to be sure of his identity. "What luck, Johnny?" repeated Dick. Johnny surveyed him from head to foot in great bewilderment. "Who be you?" he said. "Well, that's a good one," laughed Dick. "So you don't know Dick? Where'd you get all them clothes?" asked Johnny. "Have you been stealing?" "Say that again and I'll lick you. No, I've lent my clothes to a young fella as was going to a party and didn't have none fit to wear, and so I put on my second best for a change." Without deigning any further explanation, Dick went off, followed by the astonished gaze of Johnny Nolan, who could not quite make up his mind whether the neat-looking boy he had been talking with was really Ragged Dick or not. The gay, said those lame little boy. Without deigning any further explanation, Dick went off, followed by the astonished gaze of Johnny Nolan, who could not quite make up his mind whether the neat-looking boy he had talking with was really Ragged Dick or not. In order to reach Chatham Street, it was necessary to cross Broadway. This was easier proposed than done. There was always such a throng of omnibuses, drays, carriages, and vehicles of all kinds in the neighborhood of the Astor House that the crossing is formidable to one who is not used to it. Dick made nothing of it, dodging in and out among the horses and wagons with perfect self-possession. Reaching the opposite sidewalk, he looked back and found that Frank had retreated in dismay, and that the width of the street was between them. "Come across," called out Dick. "I don't see any chance," said Frank, looking anxiously at the prospect before him. "I'm afraid of being run over." "If you are, you can sue him for damages," said Dick. Finally, Frank got safely over after several narrow escapes as he considered them. "Is it always so crowded?" he asked. "A good deal worse sometimes," said Dick. "I knowed a young man once who waited 6 hours for a chance to cross, and at last he got run over by an omnibus, leaving a widder and a large family of orphan children. His widder, a beautiful young woman, was obliged to start a peanut and apple stand. There she is now." "Where?" Dick pointed to a hideous old woman of large proportions, wearing a bonnet of immense size, who presided over an apple stand close by. Frank laughed. "If that is the case," he said, "I think I will patronize her." "Leave it to me," said Dick, winking. He advanced gravely to the apple stand and said, "Old lady, have you paid your taxes?" The astonished woman opened her eyes. "I'm a government officer," said Dick, "sent by the mayor to collect your taxes. I'll take it in apples just to oblige. That big red one will be about pay what you're owing to the government." "I don't know nothing about no taxes," said the old woman in bewilderment. "Then," said Dick, "I'll let you off this time. Give us two of your best apples, and my friend here, the president of the Common Council, will pay you." Frank, smiling, paid 3 cents apiece for the apples, and they sauntered on, Dick remarking, "If these apples ain't good, old lady, we'll return 'em and get our money back." This would have been rather difficult in his case, as the apple was already half consumed. Chatham Street, where they wished to go, being on the east side, the two boys crossed the park. This is an this is an enclosure of about 10 acres, which years ago was covered with a green sward, but is now a great thoroughfare for pedestrians and contains several important public buildings. Dick pointed out the City Hall, the Hall of Records, and the Rotunda. The former is a white building of large size and surmounted by a cupola. "That's where the mayor's office is," said Dick. "Him and me are very good friends. I once blacked his boots by particular appointment. That's the way I pay my city taxes." I don't know. This book is I would say for like an advanced fifth grader, or I don't know. It's very adolescent, silly book.